Good afternoon, everybody. Pastor Brad and I have decided to take a little bit of time on this snowy afternoon and to share with you some of the highlights of the new Constitution. We've already had a number of question and answer sessions and reviewed a number of these things with all of you, but we wanted to go over some of the high points again, simply because it has been a while since we've talked about it. We're looking to vote on the new Constitution coming up at the annual meeting, and we want you to be as informed as possible and to catch a little bit of the flavor of this Constitution, and just in your mind to refresh a little bit those things that we've been working on. I want to thank a couple of folks here. First off, Ben DeVries, who obviously was not able to complete the process with us, but gave valuable leadership at the inception of this committee and really set us on the right track in a number of areas. Ben Carduce, Christy, Brads, Muller, and Brink, and also Cynthia have been just invaluable and put in a lot of time, and we've talked about it before, but research and all sorts of things, email conversations relating to this document, and we've taken into account a number of the concerns and questions raised at the question and answer times. We went back and went over each one. We've taken notes on them, and so even a number of the changes that came out of that, we want you to be aware of going forward. We have tried to shape the Constitution and to work into the Constitution things that give us flexibility, things that help us as we move forward in the future to be able maybe to move a little bit easier with different times that come into the forefront of our ministry season here at Grace Baptist. In light of that, I want to break down the Constitution just briefly for you. First off, there's the Constitution proper, and that is a short, about 2-page document, I believe, Brad, just
a half,
something like that. You'll look at that and you'll think, wow, what have they done to this Constitution? That is just an official legal document that gets filed with the CRA, and it has a bare bones amount of information, probably the less the better, in it, but there were some things that were required, so we put those in there. But even in doing that, coming out of the question and answer session, one of the things we did was we broadened the number of board of directors that we could possibly have. We said 3 to 9. That gives us flexibility. That way, if we want to expand the board of directors going forward, we don't have to refile with the CRA a new constitution. So that document is fairly short, and it is difficult to change that, obviously, and then to file it with the CRA is another bit of hassle. The second is the bylaws. Now, those are, I would say, medium-level difficulty things to change, and those don't get filed with the CRA. So if we want to change them in-house, we hold the proper votes, and the congregation comes together, discusses a new bylaw, and then we move forward with that, but it doesn't have anything really to do with the Constitution. The third part of this document is the policies. Now, the policies are fairly easily changed. You can look at the policy part of this document to reflect on how easily they are changed, but they apply to the daily workings of Grace Baptist life and associated ministries, how that works. And I'm talking about things like job descriptions. I'm talking about things like, we talk about term limits in a little bit here, I think, and just different things like that fairly easy to change if we realize this policy is not serving our needs and it has nothing to do with the main constitutional document filed with the CRA.
One of the key parts of the board of directors job description is regarding money, particularly a budget. Now, a budget is a tool that will help us as a church move forward. It's a tool that helps to provide some guidance to ministries, so they have an idea of how much and what kind of money that they can spend. A budget will be put together based on previous spending and previous income. This group, the board of directors isn't going to sit down and say, I think we should put together a budget of $3.5 million just because that's a good idea. It'll come based on looking at previous financial reports and determining how much we've spent and how much we have made as a church body. And this board of directors will get together with different people who are involved in ministry. So different groups, whether it's Sunday school or whether it's men's ministry, talk to different individuals and say, what do you foresee as being something that you're going to be spending money on this year? And that'll then be built into the budget. This is going to, in a way, force different ministries to think ahead to the future. What over this next year are we going to do? And what is it going to look like for us to meet the needs of what those plans are? Just because a budget in place, that doesn't mean that money is automatically available. It will be the responsibility of those ministry personnel to touch base with the treasurer and say, hey, this is an expense coming up. Do we have money for this? So I'll use VBS as an example. There's typically quite a bit of money that's spent for VBS every summer. If the treasurer says, hey, we just don't have that money available, well, that changes the plan as to what money can be spent there. The board of directors will work with overages. There's sometimes that unexpected expenses come up. And part of the board of directors job description will be to figure out what that's going to look like, and there are some policies in place as to how they can go about with that.
One of the things that comes up with that is that I was thinking about, I don't think it's on our notes here, but with those overages, the board of directors can bring those, and there's certain policies and certain things in place that over a certain amount, I believe it's $2,000, automatically comes to a vote of the congregation. So the board of directors can't just, okay, hey, let's do $20,000 worth of sound improvement or something like that in the middle of the year without consulting with the congregation. And the board of directors always has that option of going to the congregation, and with inflation, that $2,000 number may be 10 or 15,000. It seems like, no, that's $2,000 in the policy is what drives it to a vote of the congregation, I believe.
Yeah, there are some term limits that are being implemented as well. One of the things that we've been really talking about and praying about is the importance of having term limits, especially for people who've been serving in positions for years and years and years. It's very easy for people to get worn out and feel like, well, there's nobody else to step up and fill my role, so I guess I'll do it again. I'll fill that role for another year. And we've proposed term limits as a part of this document as a way to protect volunteers, and that can be scary, especially since it's hard enough finding people in where we're currently at. It's hard enough finding people to fit current roles, and so if we implement term limits, that really may change things, but in the long run, it will help us to very actively look for and mentor and work with different individuals to help fill these roles down the road.
If you have any questions about the Constitution, if you have any thoughts or concerns, feel free to shoot them to Brad or myself or any of the people that I mentioned earlier, and we'll give you the best answer we can. We understand these are big changes, and this is some things here that may be a little bit scary, and yeah, probably for the first little while it will be a few bumps in the road as we go to implement this. But by the time we get to the annual meeting, we want your questions not necessarily answered to where everybody is satisfaction, but at least the best answer we can give for you to all have already heard that. So by the time we get to the annual meeting, we can proceed forward with a vote on this and reflect on it that way. Thanks again for allowing us to share a few of our thoughts about the Constitution. And once again, feel free to get a hold of us if you have any questions.